about other things connected with Aspergers, and it got prompted because I went to a website where I was researching just sort of general stuff about Aspergers, and it was an open forum. It was kind of like, I think it was like a pseudo Wikipedia page where you put the subject on there, or there was a subject and people just could put their own answers or clarifications about that subject. And because it was an open forum, no one was filtering it or monitoring it. And because I put in the keyword Aspergers, found this site, and people were basically giving sort of one paragraph answers about what Aspergers was, and you know the symptoms of it, and some just sort of general background on, you know, how the phrase was coined back in the day and who Hans Asperger was. But then as I went further down, started reading a lot of negative comments about Aspergers from people that basically just didn't believe it was a thing. I'm generalising, but they were saying it was a fake syndrome made up for lazy people who couldn't be bothered to socialise. They were just saying completely negative things about Asperger's, which it made me mad. It made me sort of angry, and I thought, right, well, if I was to answer these people, and it wasn't a forum, so I couldn't answer or reply to their comment. I thought if I had one of these people standing in front of me and I'd said my little bit about what I thought, not what I thought, but what Asperger's is and how it affects people, how could I push that point home and back it up with evidence, for want of a better word? Like, what examples, real life examples, could I give somebody, a non-believer, to say, this is how Asperger's has affected my life in a negative way? In a negative way that wouldn't have happened if I'd have just been neurotypical, and in a way that many hundreds of thousands and millions of neurotypical people aren't affected by every day, such as, I don't know, like, you know, depression or anxiety or stress. You don't have to have Asperger's to have those as a consequence or as a symptom. So it got me thinking, and the harder I thought on the subject, I kind of realised it was really difficult for me to be able to say to someone, because I had Asperger's, this has affected my life in this way, and because of that I haven't been able to do this, or and I suppose because I had put some thought into it, and I was really struggling to articulate it. I suppose for me it would come down to missed opportunities in life, because Asperger's had made me socially withdrawn, because I didn't have the skills to to socialise, to communicate with other people very well, and because of that it stifled my opportunities in later life. But I still can't pinpoint how, and I still couldn't argue that point home, that how is that any different to, you know, someone who hasn't got Asperger's? Someone with low confidence, let's say, that hasn't got Asperger's, would have quite logically been affected in the same way, with the same results in their later life. So I'm still still struggling to be able to put my finger on specific things that happened to me that wouldn't have happened if I hadn't had Asperger's. Now, if anyone would like to leave a comment below to try and say, well, how they had been affected, and give a small example, because it annoys me now that I can't justify myself, and it comes back to what I've said in the past about explaining Asperger's to people in a short, concise way that gets across what it is. But I have this internal feeling when I'm going through the explanation that actually doesn't sound bad, does it? Doesn't sound like I'm having any real difficulties at all when I try and articulate to people what it is. And in one of my previous videos I say, no, it's with Asperger's, it's a culmination thing. It's lots of things coming together to make a bigger thing. And people with Asperger's and autism have these common little things that all build up into a bigger thing. And it's very difficult not to trivialise it, I think. So this video is more sort of a thought-provoking one. Like, I'm talking about Asperger's, like people with other forms of autism who've got learning difficulties, and they need help and assistance throughout their life. Yeah, I mean, you can pinpoint things that if their autism hadn't been present, you know, their life would have been different. But for high functioning autism and Asperger's, it's something that some neurotypicals, because I was reading their comments, just don't believe it's real. They just don't believe it's something that exists. They believe it's made up by some fancy psychiatrist or doctor that was just trying to, I don't know what they think their motives would be. But when someone studies something for a super long time, then I suppose they end up spotting the minute differences in people's makeup and how they process information and how they interact with the world. But to a standard average person, they don't see any different, do they? I mean, as I said, I've gone 47 years. I didn't even know I had Asperger's. But more interestingly, nobody ever mentioned to me, had I ever thought of it, you know, because I had some traits. And I know that comes down to, you know, education, and basically, you know, you're being a sort of psychiatrist, really. You know, you've got to see small, subtle signs and symptoms and put these together in a chain that basically leads you to a road of, you know, you're on the spectrum. But for normal people, they just can't see it in people with Asperger's high functioning, you know, because we're high functioning, we're getting on with everyday things, we're articulate, we can hold down a job. You know, only 16% of us can hold down a full-time job. We can do everything else other people can, so they kind of then use that as the yardstick to say, well, how's that made your life any more difficult? How's that made your life so bad? How is this Asperger's thing that you've been told you've got any different to just me, you know, a neurotypical person? How's it any different at all? And I can't get my head around what reply I could come back to someone, a naysayer, a non-believer, people that just think it's a fake thing that's been made up. These people generally just, you know, it's not just Asperger's they don't believe in. You know, there's a lot of things they probably don't believe in. All So yeah, this video is more about thought-provoking, and I'd like to get some feedback and some comments from people to say, if I hadn't had Aspergers, this wouldn't have happened, and this wouldn't have had this massive impact in my life. But you've got to try and look at it like Aspergers is on trial in a courtroom, and you're the defender, and you've got to put across to a jury and defend Aspergers and use real life examples, evidence to show the absence of it in your life there would have been a change, a significant change, and the prosecution are just saying no, it's fake, it doesn't exist. And for every example you bring up, they'll just say, well, you don't have to have Aspergers to be, to have stress, to be anxious, to be sensitive to sound or light. You don't have to have Aspergers to have these things. And how have they negatively impacted someone's life? And how do you do that without just trivialising it and making it seem actually like it is very, very, very tiny, and basically you shouldn't view yourself any different to anyone else. Anyway, be interesting if anyone does comment. I don't get many comments on the channel, but I thought I'd put this one out there, and possibly this is something we can come back to in the future and talk about again when I've put more thought into it, and possibly I've come up with what I think's some of the best examples for me personally that I can give to defend it. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.